Hello world and welcome again. I am Linden Tibbets, IFTTT Founder and CEO. I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy out there and things are starting to open up. That's exciting. And I hope wherever you are that you're staying safe and healthy as you're getting back to work and back out enjoying other people's company. Very excited today for what we'll be presenting. We've got a great presentation discussing how some of the top brands in the smart home are tackling integrations and really why they're taking those different approaches. So without further ado, let's get started. Great agenda today. Kick it off with an intro. We'll talk through some of the kind of high-level approaches that folks are taking to tackle that integration strategy. And then we'll dive deep into three strategies in particular with some of my favorite products, Ring, LIFX, and iRobot. And then at the end, we'll have some time for a couple audience Q&A questions. So the big question to start with is, why should your smart home business need an integration strategy in the first place? Well, it's all about customers, and specifically customer engagement and retention. And those customers, their lives and their homes are getting more and more complex and more connected all the time. The average household has 11 or more connected devices. 1 in 4 of those households has a voice assistant, which is just astounding. And it's predicted by 2025, there will be over 46 billion internet connected devices in the world. And so if you're a brand and a smart home product in particular, this challenge to be a part of your customers' lives in an integrated and thoughtful way just gets bigger by the minute. And back to this idea of engagement and retention, the reason why anybody who's ever had an integration strategy, whether it's building their own developer platform, building one-off direct integrations, or integrating with an integration platform as a service, have all done so because they want to keep their users coming back to buy more things, to do more things, to upgrade to premium services, anything that falls under that bucket of engagement. And many of the most popular initial integrations that smart home products take on right out of the gate are voice assistants. Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, so on and so forth. But those voice assistants are really only the tip of the iceberg. They allow you to connect to a single new interface, voice, but they don't allow you to connect to all the other devices and services in that user's world. And your customer's desire for compatibility really can't be satiated. It's hard to understate the pain and hassle that your customers are going through today when it comes to getting everything in their lives to work together, not just their internet connected devices, but everything. And so when you think about choosing an integration strategy or developing your integration strategy, you've really got to start with customers and start with the assumption that those customers are creating more and more complex ecosystems in their world, in their homes, every day. And an integration strategy has to be able to adapt for this more complex world that their customers are living in. So I mentioned earlier that first integration out of the gate is voice, and it's something we see really across the board. It's a very important integration, and frankly, it's one of those integrations that has become the catalyst for value across the ecosystem and catalyst for the growth of the smart home in the first place. I often encourage our customers to think about smart home products and the adoption of those smart home products as really having just two fundamental variables: the ease of that customer being able to buy your product, connect it to the internet, set it up, and then the overall value that that customer expects or actually experiences once they've done it. And you can either make things easier, make it easier for your customer to adopt your product, make it cheaper, make it quicker to set up, make it less of a hassle to maintain, or you can increase the value that they expect to get when they go through that process. And if you have enough value, your customers will really kind of climb mountains to get to that value. And just about any decision you make as a product manager, as a business leader at a smart home company, involves toggling between those two variables. Obviously, we would want to make things as easy as possible and as valuable as possible, but there's always a balance. Where you invest your time and effort across those two variables is one of the hardest decisions that any smart home company is making today. And because of that, it's so easy to start with voice. But as we mentioned, there's a big limitation there. Voice makes it more valuable and in many cases easier for your customer to adopt and connect that product. But it only really touches one very specific aspect of their world, namely their ability to control your device via voice. And there's just so much more out there for you to be thinking about relative to connectivity and being a bigger part of your customers' lives. And that said, I think this stat is really amazing for the people that have those voice assistants. We mentioned before, 1 in 4 households, almost 3 out of 4, or 72% of those consumers use that voice assistant every day. So right out of the gate, you should integrate with voice, and you should do so directly. IFT is probably not the right solution if you're only looking to integrate with voice, but instead, as you think about all the other things that you can integrate with, that's when an iPaaS like IFT really comes into play. So I mentioned these 3 different options or 3 different approaches to building integrations. I want to spell them out and talk about them in more detail here. Really, when it comes to integrations, you can do a direct one, like we discussed with Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant, where you're building on their developer platform. You can build your own developer platform and maintain and curate that, make it all the way open or partially open. Or you could integrate with an integration platform as a service, just like IFT. Now, there's trade-offs across all 3 of these. Building direct integrations often leads to the best possible user experiences, but they can be incredibly costly, both to integrate with initially and maintain over time. Developer platforms, also very costly. They come with the added benefit of a successful developer platform bringing a lot of defensibility, a lot of stickiness to your product and your brand. A brand that has a strong developer platform is one that is on its way to creating a much stronger position in the marketplace. My favorite developer platform to talk about of all time is Windows. They dominated the PC industry largely because of their platform dominance as well. Because all the apps were being built for Windows, users really didn't have much of a choice to go anywhere else for a very long time. Those developer platforms, though, not only are difficult and costly to build, but there's a lot of cost associated with curating who builds on your platform. It's often easy to think that you're going to open up this developer platform and all of the most amazing integrations are going to come your way. But that's not often the case. And even for some of the most successful developer platforms out there, think Windows, iOS, so on and so forth, for every one great experience, something that you want to highlight to your audience, you're probably going to get 10 or more really poor things that don't work, things that create security risks. And so you really have to think about the cost associated with opening up that developer platform in the first place. And then finally, the iPaaS often offers significant scale, especially an iPaaS like IFT that has over 600 or more services ready to integrate with right out of the gate. And because of that, you have much greater speed and flexibility. But this is a whole new world. The integration platform as a service as a thing has really only existed for just a couple of years now. And so how you approach integrations through an iPaaS, I think, is probably radically different than how we approach direct integrations or developer platforms. And as an entire market, we're still working collaboratively together to figure out what is that best approach. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. A little bit more about IFT. We have over 20 million users on the platform today, and over half of those, 10 million of those IFT users, have connected at least one smart home product to the IFT platform. And in many cases, they've connected 3, 4, 5 or more. And there's a huge range of the types of smart home products that they're connecting to our platforms. The most popular being lighting, thermostats and temperature control, and smart hubs and systems, things that kind of aggregate and bring a lot of those devices together in one place. And not only is the scale of types of smart home products really immense on the platform, but the types of integrations, the types of things that those products are doing through integrations is also really immense. You see here on the right, just within the smart home, things like lighting, smart hubs and systems, environmental control, hundreds of thousands of different integrations just within those categories alone. And it's not just smart home devices talking to other smart home devices. Some of the biggest scale in terms of adoption actually exists when you're connecting a smart home product to some other internet-based service that may or may not be oriented around a device at all. So let's start with tackling 3 different strategies right out of the gate with Ring here. They were founded in 2013, acquired by Amazon in 2019. They started as a Wi-Fi enabled video doorbell, one of the first out of the gate and one of the most well known in the early days, and have evolved and gradually expanded into home security in general, from cameras and lights and different kind of things at the point of entry in the home. And they've been working with IFT since 2015. Ring's integration strategy is really kind of all of the things at once in many ways, and you'll see that as a common theme. Oftentimes, smart home companies don't just choose to do direct integrations, developer platforms, or iPaaS. It's really a mix of all 3. And Ring is compatible with a range of different locks and deadbolts and other devices at the point of entry through direct integrations. They have a Works with Ring program that handles a lot of those integrations. They've also got a program they call Ring Plus, which is another mix of service and hardware-based integrations. They also have something they call Neighbors by Ring, and that is the ability for your Ring devices to connect to other Ring devices and, in some cases, some of the local authorities. So those are all integrations there as well. And of course, if you've kind of watched the tech news lately, you've seen a number of controversies stirred up because of that. Of course, I think they started that program with all the best intentions, but very easy to see how consumers can react negatively to that. And it's going to be something that they, along with others, are going to have to figure out over time, because there's no doubt there's an interesting opportunity there, but it's going to be tricky to get just right from a trust perspective. They've got native integrations for Alexa and Google Assistant, of course. One of the things to note, though, is as they were acquired by Amazon, a number of the things that they could do with the Google Assistant got shut down. In particular, things like video support for some of the Google Assistant devices that support video. That's only available on the Amazon Alexa devices. And this is a very common both problem and strategy to really kind of bring value together in a product portfolio overall. Not necessarily always in the best interest of consumers, but it also allows Amazon plus Ring to provide the best possible experience across a range of services and products that they solely control. And again, with Ring, trust is so critical. This is, one of the most important areas in the house. It's someone that is coming up and asking to, frankly, be a part of your world for a brief moment or longer if it's a dinner party. And that really leads us to what Jamie, the chief inventor and CEO at Ring, says about why they decided to work with IFT, and I think more broadly, how they decide to work with partners in general. They always want to work with trusted brands, and their mission is really about security and safety in the most critical way, and IFT fits that bill. And you'll see this really kind of carried through into that integration strategy because they have a highly curated set of integrations that they offer to their customers. Ring doesn't have an open API, so my guess is they have a developer platform, but it's not something that you can just navigate to via Google. It's something that you've got to reach out and really establish a relationship with them first. And you can imagine that plays in very well with their focus on security and safety because they've really avoided having to manage a wild west of potential integrations, gaining access to really sensitive information about your home. You see here about a little bit more about how Ring shows up and works on IFT. They're very trigger centric and they really only have 2 triggers. And sometimes it's not about volume of endpoints. It's really about the quality of those endpoints. And as you would guess, there's ring to the doorbell as a trigger and motion detection as a trigger. They've got queries coming soon and they connect to over 271 unique services through IFT across a wide variety of categories. So you see there just through IFT that they're getting, a huge amount of integrations right out of the gate. And that's really the power of integration platforms as a service like IFT. It's integrate once and get hundreds of possible integrations out the other end. Some examples of some of the most popular integrations on the platform or some of the most interesting ones with Ring. Obviously lights like Q or LIFX, making the entryway more visible when someone rings the doorbell. One of my favorite examples and favorite services on the platform is Audicon, which is a range of hearing aids. So you can imagine someone with a hearing aid perhaps not being able to hear the doorbell as it's normally set up, but being able to deliver that notification directly into the hearing aid, or controlling things like music or your iRobot Roomba when someone comes to the door and you have visitors. So moving on to LIFX, I'm a customer, many times over, got a couple of them in the home, and I think more than 10 or 20 of them in the IFT office. So we're big fans of LIFX and their product. They were founded in 2012, Wi-Fi enabled lights. In 2020, they just launched a brand new, really well-designed app experience. And they offer a great entry point into the smart home in general because it's, oftentimes you can buy a single light bulb that's bundled with that Wi-Fi connectivity in the light bulb itself. No need for a hub. So I think they've been massively successful in kind of opening up the market a little bit, making it a lot easier for someone to just dip a toe in and get that first connected device. And their integration strategy, I think, is also a little bit unique. They've got a mix of well-known trusted brands, things like Xfinity Home or Samsung or Logitech, as well as early stage startups. I think really unique companies doing unique things in the smart home space. LIFX, different from Ring, they have their own open API platform. You can find it via Google. You can start building right away. You've got all the documentation you need right at your fingertips. And you can see how that really plays in well because LIFX, many of their integrations can be a little bit more about fun, a little bit more whimsical. Of course, every smart home product has to take security really seriously, but something like lighting is actually a lot easier to think about all the different ways in which someone might use lights with a lot less risk associated with some of those use cases. So that's probably one of the reasons why they have that open platform. They probably welcome that wild west of integrations in a really positive way. And they've got multiple points of discoverability. You can find these integrations in their mobile app, on their website, and of course, any of the integrations that are on IFT can be found in the mobile app or on IFT itself. The way LIFX shows up on IFT, they're in contrast to Ring, very action-centric. triggers and queries coming soon. They have a number of different ways to control the lights. And all of those 369 unique services, all of those integrations involve a service controlling your LIFX light in one way or another. They've got a really unique distribution across all the different categories. And you see here, again, part of the power of an integration platform as a service is that there is no kind of 80-20 rule in a lot of cases. You'll find that once you get to scale, the types of things that can integrate with your product or that you might want to integrate with your product is really very diverse and very widespread. And so what are some of those consumers doing with LIFX on IFT? You see here, using something like an August lock to again turn on your lights either at the point of entry or kind of a critical point, back door, front door, turning on your Arlo camera and turning on your lights when it detects motion, using it to connect to Uber when it's time to go. Kind of a subtle, certainly useful, but also a little bit whimsical way to think about how light really communicates something new in a new way. And they also connect to Ring via our platform, which I think is unique and fun to call out because you can really connect to brands in so many different ways. And I think IFT is hopefully one of the easiest, and it's one of the ways in which LIFX has leveraged our platform to date. And finally, we'll talk about iRobot. Founded in 1990, so they've been around. They've been doing the smart home product, frankly, even before they were smart, before they were connected to the internet. That's only really happened here in the last decade. They've got Wi-Fi connected robots that do all kinds of different cleaning functions, from the Roomba to the BravoJet. They've sold over 30 million of those robots to date. So just incredible scale in terms of adoption so far. And they've worked with IFT since 2017. I'm also a iRobot Roomba customer. Absolutely love it. Have it clean up after my cats every time they use the litter box. So we'll talk about that use case here in a second. iRobot's integration strategy is also unique, and again, also a mix. They have been very focused and have prioritized creating the ideal user experience or consumer experience around those integrations and in general across their entire product line. They believe that it's got to be incredibly easy for people to use this stuff. And I think it goes back to those kind of two variables. It can either be easier to use or more valuable. Obviously, a robot vacuum is incredibly valuable in terms of the time savings, but it's also got to be easy to set up and maintain. They use IFT for all third-party integrations. They've connected natively with Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, but for every other integration that they're prioritizing, they've used IFT not only as an iPaaS, but really as a replacement for that developer platform in general. And obviously all these integrations available on IFT, but now also directly in their mobile apps. And that's what you see here, this screenshot, and we'll show a couple more screenshots in a second. And this is all via IFT Connect that allows them to implement those integrations in a very consumer-friendly way, a really great user experience that doesn't involve downloading the IFT app or having an IFT account. And you'll see here how iRobot works on the platform. They've got a little bit of everything, triggers, queries, and actions, all kinds of different ways to either get information out of or control your robot vacuum and robot cleaning products. And again, that same thing shows up here, a very wide array of different types of integrations that iRobot has seen on the IFT platform. And I think this is one of the things that's worth touching on. And again, part of the value that any integration platform as a service like IFT should be offering is not only the ability to integrate really easy with a lot of different things, but also learn about what your customers want to integrate with. And that's really informed which of those integrations iRobot has brought into their own product experiences. Because for iRobot users, they've got over 250 different services connected to iRobot via IFT, but they're only bringing a small handful of those into their mobile products so far. And so that allows them to really get the best of both worlds, to really see the Wild West as it exists on the IF platform, all the crazy things that their users want to do because those users are able to make those integrations for themselves, and then sit back and learn, and then decide which of those integrations to kind of build into much easier, more consumable experiences for their mainstream audience in a more curated way. Some of the things that consumers can do with iRobot on IF, they again connect to August Lock to clean their floors as people leave, making sure that the Roomba doesn't start running whenever you're watching a program on TiVo or other kind of TV services. Same use case around Sonos. And then that final one is the one that I'm a big fan of, connecting it to your litter robot, which is an automatic cat cleaning robot, and making sure that that area around that litter robot stays clean every time it's in use. And you see here Chris Jones, Chief Technology Officer, some of the reasons they're excited to be working with IF and Connect, and again, allows them to select those right integrations. So brings that curational aspect to integrations, and do that in a way that's much easier with a really excellent end user experience. And here are a couple more screenshots of that IF Connect flow. You see they offer up those integrations, things like Life 360, MyQ garage door openers, Ecobee thermostats, August Lock, and the user at the click of a button and a little bit of authentication is up and running with an integration without ever having to touch the IFT app or the IFT user experience. So we bring it all together here, the three different, really kind of industry leading companies, Ring, LIFX, iRobot, to kind of compare and contrast. You see here that Ring and iRobot both have a closed API, something that's not just open for anybody to come develop on, and LIFX has an open one. The number of direct integrations, essentially integrations that they built beyond just an iPaaS or a developer platform, things that they've kind of built in-house and maintained themselves, fairly different across them. Ring has 17, LIFX has 12, iRobot just has 3, IFT, Alexa, and Google Assistant. And you see all 3 of them are compatible with both Amazon and Google Assistant, and those are direct integrations that they've all built themselves. Integrations via IFT, you see there that they're all 250, 350 and above, so they're all achieving integrations at scale through the IFT platform. And that integration UX, where they offer those integrations, only LIFX has those integrations available both on web and mobile. And Ring and iRobot have really chosen to focus primarily on their mobile experiences, which I believe is going to be a trend going forward as well. It's just easier to focus with the primary device in your customers' lives, and increasingly, and probably for the last decade now, that's been mobile. And some of the top categories, what are the things that they're connecting with? You see there on the right, LIFX connects back with security and weather, some really interesting use cases there. And Ring connects with lighting and music. And iRobot, I think, interestingly enough, one of the things that they see a lot of that's unique across the 3 is they see a lot of integrations on the IF platform to other developer tools, whether those are webhooks or other things. And so that really kind of touches on that power user community, the people that are willing to go above and beyond to get the integration they want and really help iRobot learn about what their customers want to do and help them do it a lot easier. So with that, would love to move into some audience Q&A. Probably have time for a couple questions. Just go ahead and type that there in the GoToWebinar chat box. Take a look at what folks are asking. I think here's one. You really, as a product manager, someone asked, how should I be thinking about integrations as part of a roadmap? And the answer that I'd have for that is really it goes back to those 3 different options for integrations. You can either build them as a direct integration, someone else can build them on your developer platform, or you can get integrations through an integration platform as a service like IFT. And we said it at the top of the meeting here that it's really going to be a mix across all three of those. Very few brands are just doing one. Most brands are doing some combination of the three. And depending on which one you're doing, which of those integration types you're taking on, it's a very different task to put that on your roadmap. Things like direct integrations, well, those in many cases can be entirely new apps. We talked about Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, those being pretty big integrations. Now, not as big as your mobile app, which you could kind of say is also another integration, but sizable nonetheless, and something you're going to have to maintain over time. And so that's going to require a little bit of a different effort to figure out how it fits on your roadmap, because you're also going to need to make sure you're talking about the resources needed to maintain that integration over time. Developer platforms, that's one of the easiest. You build the developer platform, and if you market it correctly, other people build integrations for you. That said, a lot of the effort after you've achieved that success, which worth noting, it's very rare to achieve that success with your developer platform. There's a lot of developer platforms that are ghost towns out there, not because the developer platforms weren't well built. But once you achieve that success, a lot of the effort comes in curating and really kind of keeping the best integrations going, and the bad stuff, the things that are either not working or perhaps even doing something mischievous, something you don't want someone doing with your API, keeping those out. And then finally, with an integration platform as a service, we discussed really this is kind of being a new frontier. It's a very new way to think about integrations. And the way we think about it at IFT is really, how do we make integrations just like product features? When you think about building a new product feature, you're often thinking about what your customers want, what's going to keep them coming back, what's going to encourage them to adopt or purchase your product in the first place. And the easier that we can make building and maintaining those integrations, well, the easier it's going to be to slot those things into your roadmap. And I think the less of a risk and the less of a kind of after the fact resource drain maintaining that integration is going to be over time. So there's really, I think, different approaches. And in our opinion, the integration platform as a service hopefully is the closest to being how you might think about adding just a product feature to a roadmap of all three. So here's another question that I think is going to be worth chatting with a little bit. So someone asked, what are the risks associated with exposing your customers to integrations that are highly dependent and on the brands themselves? The brands, and now I'm expanding on the question a little bit, but I think this is a question about reliability and trust. And so again, regardless of whether you're building a direct integration, curating an integration built on your developer platform, or maintaining integrations built through an integration platform as a service, trust is always an issue. And at the end of the day, I think it's worth accepting that trust is not some static thing. You don't have it or you don't. It's something that you build with your customers over time. And if you're building a direct integration, well, you've got to be very, very careful about which brands you're picking to make sure that those are, well-adopted brands, well-funded companies that build successful and reliable products, because the overhead is so high. And if you go to an integration platform as a service like IFT, I think you can reduce some of that risk because it's a much lower overhead to build and maintain that integration. But you should also expect a same or a very high degree of trust. And so as you're building or eroding trust with your customers, all these other brands that you might integrate with are doing the same thing. And so to really think of it as a fluid situation, and the easier that you can make that initial build out and maintenance of an integration, the more experimental you can be, the more things you can try and ultimately decide, hey, this isn't reliable enough, or this isn't trustworthy enough. That brand has changed from when we initially integrated with it. it allows you to be a little bit more fluid with how you think about integrations as it relates to trust and reliability. Well, thank you. I think that's all the time we have for questions. Really thrilled that you decided to join us today to talk about smart home integration strategies. Hope to see you next time. Again, everybody stay safe and healthy. And this is Linden Tibbets signing off.